There is an experiment called Pavlov's dog experiment. I will be concise in explaining it. Ivan Pavlov fed dogs. But before he fed them, he repeatedly rang a bell. After a while, the dogs started to salivate when they hear a bell ringing, in anticipation of food. The implicit importance of this classic conditioning experiment is not in the fact that the dogs salivated when they heard a bell ringing. The most important meaning of this experiment is that no matter how strong a dog is, it will end up salivating when conditioned that way. The same goes for human beings. No matter how strong you are, when you are locked in certain types of psychological structure, you will suffer. To ease the pain you are feeling, you will develop obsessive symptoms in accordance with your disposition and situation you are in. This is why you need to understand the psychological structure you are being locked in. I had a few patients who had OCD related to numbers. When they see something or even think about something related to certain numbers, they imagined about terrible things. To cleanse such imaginations, they repeatedly did certain things, too. Those were their symptoms. The more they tried not to think about the numbers, the more they thought about them. They were living life constantly being afraid of the situations related to the numbers. Many of them had negative feelings about number 4. It is because it sounds the same as death in Chinese. This is why they tried to avoid it as much as possible. It is okay if such tendency does not interfere with their lives. However, they had trouble because it intensified. There also was one who had difficulty with number 16. I wondered why number 16 became the cause of his symptoms. Through the sessions with him, I found out that he started to be socially afraid after being ruthlessly bullied by his friends when he was in the 2nd grade of middle school. The personal reason he had was that his student number at that time was 16. In the classic conditioning experiment that I mentioned above, Ivan Pavlov connected the experience of being fed with the sound of a bell. He induced the dogs to think about food when they hear a ring. At the beginning, to the dogs, the sound of a bell and food had no relevance. However, after the conditioning, the cause and effect relationship was formed between the sound of a bell and the experience of being fed. Because their minds anticipated and imagined food, the dogs salivated. Likewise, my patient connected his social fear of getting bullied with his student number. As a result, he couldn't help but recall the unfortunate situation he experienced in middle school whenever he saw number 16. This is because the connection he made between number 16 and his social fear imprinted number 16 as the symbol of misfortune on his mind. As a result, his mind started to imagine the most unhappy moment of the past whenever he encountered the things related to 16. When he came across such things, his subconsciousness went back to his middle school days. Even though he was a grown-up, his mind was the same as the mind he had in the 2nd grade of middle school. He told me that quite surprisingly, he encounters too many situations related to number 16. It was not so surprising to me. A boy with a hammer finds everything he encounters needs pounding. Our subconscious minds choose and recognize the things that are bothering us emotionally. He knew that he did not experience any situation related to number 16 before he was bullied. However, after he was bullied, his life was overwhelmed with number 16. In real life, the sound of a bell and food has nothing to do with each other. A ring can signal multitude of things. It can signal the beginning of something, the end of something, or the call for attention. There is nothing wrong with the sound of a bell. It is an isolated event. The same goes with number 16. A number is only a number. It cannot cause misfortune. It does not have supernatural power to do such a thing. A number can be used anywhere. Depending on contexts and situations, it can mean a myriad of things. It can represent the time of a day, the quantity of things, or a symbolic value. There is nothing wrong with number 16. It is just a number. My patient recognized the symbolic meaning of number 16 and faced it. He started to understand the reason why number 16 had been affecting his life. After that, he was able to see the effect it had on him was the same as the effect the sound of a bell had on the dogs. It was a stimulus connected to his anxiety. He realized that number 16 was not directly connected with misfortunes. He was the middleman. It was connected to misfortunes only inside his mind. It was the reason he created. The dogs did not have to salivate when they heard the sound of a bell. Likewise, he did not have to feel anxious about number 16. He finally saw that number 16 had nothing to do with misfortunes. He started to feel relieved as it dawned on him that his is not in that kind of socially scary situation anymore. He also understood that he will not be in that kind of situation in the future because he was not the same boy he was back in his middle school days. He was able to free himself from the memories of the past. He came back to reality. Human beings are higher animals who have metacognitive ability. This is why he succeeded in escaping. We have power to objectively see ourselves lost in our mazes. As a result of the traditional conditioning experiment, the dogs fell into the faulty trap of cause and effect. It is the representative case of an incorrect connection artificially created between cause and effect. You will be able to get out of your trap only by reanalyzing, deconstructing, and reinterpreting cause and effect. All these happen because we are too smart. Being smart here means that we are very good at connecting cause and effect. It is the ability that makes us think, why, when an event takes place. It is the ability to find a reason, memorize it, and make preparation for the future. This is why human beings have evolved and developed to this extent. Other animals couldn't evolve and develop like human beings because they are not equipped with such ability. However, as they easily forget the past and never try to predict the future, they can live in the moment. There is nothing good or evil in smartness itself. It can be a healthy ability or an unhealthy ability depending on how it is used. In a broader sense, human beings create the concept of the past and the future with the power to connect cause and effect. By doing so, we can live rich and multidimensional lives. We made a connection that predicts the future from the past. We live lives predicting the result, the future, from the past. If this connection functions in an unhealthy way, it becomes hard for us to live in the present moment. Bound by the past and worrying about the future, we get locked in virtual reality. It is about locking ourselves in our obsessions, our habits of worrying about the uncertain future seen through the remorseful past. It is about living lives predicting the possibility of the bad things of our past happening again in the future. By doing so, we get stuck in between the remorseful and scary past and the uncertain future. This is another form of a faulty cause and effect trap. Our past is not directly connected to our future. The past affects the present and the present affects the future. There was a medium, the dogs, in between the sound of a bell and the food. There also was a medium, my patient, in between number 16 and misfortunes. Likewise, there is a medium in between the past and the future, the present. This is why we need to use our past to grow in the present. We have to look at the present to expect the future. We have to make the right connection. My patient was afraid of his friend who hated him revealing his weakness to the people he will meet in the future. He was scared of not being able to be free from the boy he was in the past. Even though he had become a completely different person, he believed that his past will directly affect his future. This is why I helped him to face the truth of the present situation. Instead of letting other people reveal his secret, I urged him to honestly tell people around him what he was like in the past and let them know that he was not the same person anymore. I made him experience that by confidently showing who he is right now, he can feel less anxious and be free. It was about making him realize that because he is in between the present and the future as a medium, his past will never directly affect his future. In our lives, we fall into many different cause and effect traps. They are the results of our decisions made in haste. They are part of the mechanisms through which we develop faulty faiths. Such faiths trap us and make it impossible for us to live in the present. We need to untangle the knots complicatedly jumbled up. All these are parts of the process to learn how to face the truth. Through this process, you can learn that finding and expressing the true reason is the most healthy and safe way. You are bound to feel anxious and frustrated if you keep hiding and suppressing. If you keep doing so, you will have to live every day with a heavy burden on your shoulders. I hope that you escape from the cause and effect trap you are caught in and finally be free.